Truly special players are rare in the NFL. Usually it takes time for fans and the rest of the sport to realize greatness has arrived. So it's no surprise that amongst Seahawks fans there is some debate about the exact game Russell Wilson morphed from a proficient game manager into an impactful, game-changing player. Certainly, most fans recognized it in Russell's first year, but one game in particular, Russell showed the NFL what was to come. Some might point to the game being the Green Bay Packer Hail Mary finish. Many others would say it was the "Ya Mad Bro" game against New England at home, where Russell and company shocked the Patriots. Russell did play spectacularly in that game, posting nearly 300 yards passing and ending the contest on a 50-yard touchdown bomb that was echoed years later in the NFC Championship game finish. And while he was coming into his own and showing flashes of being able to take over football games, it was only for just short bursts. Only a few weeks after the Patriots win, the Seahawks played the Chicago Bears at Soldier Field, in what was the game that Russell finally, fully, kicked down the door of greatness. And while the rest of the NFL took some time to catch up, the 12th man recognized it clear as day. They had been waiting for years for a quarterback of this caliber. It was an early December game. The Seahawks were 7-4, while the Bears were 8-3. Seattle was fighting to keep their playoff footing secure, while the Bears were sitting atop their division, though the Packers were nipping at their heels. The odds didn't appear to be in the Seahawks' favor. The Bears had a stacked team, and that 10 a.m. start time had been a death knell for Seahawks teams going back decades. The game began like most 10 o'clock games in recent memory. Both the offense and defense still looked half awake. On the first drive, the Bears' front four got into the Seahawks' pass protection, and soon afterwards, Marshawn Lynch had the ball torn free on a controversial fumble. The Bears took advantage, driving the ball with a mix of run and pass for an early touchdown, though the Legion of Boom made sure to flip the receiver for having the audacity to score on them. Bobby Wagner had a notion to stuff the receiver's head into the turf mid-flip, but showed mercy. Russell Wilson made some good throws, but the offense was unable to respond. All day, the Bears worked Brandon Marshall on intermediate routes, and the Hawks defense never really had much of an answer. They controlled the clock in the first half and seemed on the precipice of going up by 2 scores until the defense kicked into gear, getting a key 4th down stop in Seahawks territory. The offense came to life. Finally given a clean pocket, Russell threw his trademark deep ball to Sidney Rice. He followed this up on the next play by avoiding a sure sack with a last-second flick out to Marshawn Lynch just as he was being taken to the ground. Seattle tried running to take some pressure off Wilson, but the yards on the ground seemingly had dried up. It was nearly all going to be on his shoulders this day. On a key 3rd and 6, Russell got some rare time to throw, and he made the Bears pay, hitting Golden Tate on a pinpoint deep ball that allowed Tate to do his yak magic and take the ball down inside the 5. From there, passionate Doug Baldwin pinned his defender on a beautiful block, allowing beast mode to sidewind his way into the end zone. With the game tied, the Bears tried to go back to milking Marshall in the middle of the field, but it was all they had. The ball and momentum quickly swung back to the Seahawks. With just under a minute and a half to go in the second quarter, Russell drove the Hawks back down inside the 20 by hitting Baldwin on a frozen rope the defender never saw coming. Only 16 seconds were on the clock, but Russell Wilson wasn't thinking field goal. No. Right off the snap, Bears defensive tackle Israel Adonijah beats Hawk guard Paul McQuiston, and he seems to have a free run at Russell. Wilson deftly sidestepped Adonijah, angling him back into McQuiston's block. The wily maneuver flushed him from the pocket, forcing him to also avoid the Bears' defensive end, who had easily bull rush beaten tackle Breno Giacomini. Avoiding 2 defenders at once proved one too many, and caused Russell to lose his footing and start to fall. He chucked up a prayer to where only his receiver could get it, and Braylon Edwards cupped his hands under the ball for an incredible touchdown. It would be a classic Russell Wilson highlight if not for the fact the play didn't stand. After a long deliberation, the officials concluded there was sufficient evidence to overrule the call on the field. Had this been played in Seattle, the officials might have been tarred and feathered on the spot. In one half alone, there were 3 questionable turnover rulings, all that went in the Bears' favor. Pete Carroll was livid, and he made sure to give the officials a piece of his mind at halftime. The second half began, and the Hawks offense returned to its sputtering early game form. Russell still made some good throws, but the offensive line and the running game struggled to find any kind of consistency. The Bears continued to lean on Brandon Marshall as their only viable offensive option, and it continued to pay dividends. Whether he was lined up on the outside or in the slot, Marshall was unstoppable. On an early Bears touchdown in the second half, he not only drew double coverage, but Earl Thomas remained lurking over the top as well, allowing for Matt Forte to get singled up with Bobby Wagner out on an island. With nothing working offensively, Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson reached deep into their bag of tricks. The announcers noted that Pete Carroll had been studying film of Robert Griffin, who is currently in the midst of a great rookie campaign, thanks largely to head coach Mike Shanahan's willingness to use college concepts that Griffin was comfortable with, including, and most importantly, the read option. The NFL had just recently gone through a wildcat phase, which was just the read option with an extra running back in place of the quarterback. But the Redskins and Shanahan had become the first team in recent memory to run the formation where the quarterback was truly a threat, to keep the fake, tuck it, and run. Up until the Chicago game, the Seahawks had really not used the read option. The coaching staff was busy developing Wilson as an NFL passer and usually preferred having a fullback in the game. Early in the fourth quarter, with the offense stuck in the mud, the protection wobbly, the run game stonewalled, and the Bears' coverage locked tight, the Hawks activated the deadly read option. The first attempt was an easy success. It was obvious the Bears were unprepared for the play, as each time the Hawks ran it, the defensive end completely ignored Wilson to crash down on the running back. Rather than stay with what was working, offensive coordinator Darrell Bevell decided to put the play on ice for a while, and the drive stalled. The game was winding down fast, the Seahawks' chances dwindling. After giving up a few first downs, the Seahawks defense was finally able to get a stop. But the unit did Wilson and the offense no favors, as the Bears' punt pinned the Hawks at their own 3-yard line. Wilson had 3:35 and 2 timeouts to drive 97 yards against a defense with household names like Julius Peppers, Brian Urlacher, Lance Briggs, and Charles Peanut Tillman. This was where Russell's greatness was born. Bit by bit, Russell patiently matriculated the offense up the field, doing whatever it took. Take this one play that was vintage Wilson. Both offensive tackles get beaten almost instantly off the snap. Russell rolls to his right to buy his receivers time, but the Bears' pass rush is breathing down his neck. Russell sprints past Brian Urlacher, who once ran a 4.5 at the combine like he was standing still, then lowers his shoulder on the cornerback to secure the first down, all while keeping his feet to get out of bounds and stop the clock, preserving an extra play before the 2-minute warning. It was only a 10-yard rush, but this was like watching Neo from the Matrix learn he could stop bullets. On the next play, Russell casually stiff-armed Pro Bowl cornerback Charles Tillman to the ground and jogged out of bounds for another low-key 6-yard gain. Russell's scrambles cut the pass rush down to 3 as the Bears started to dedicate a lineman to spying on Wilson. But this strategy only works if you use a linebacker, as Wilson easily rolled around the slower-footed spy, hitting Sidney Rice on a strike that had Seattle knocking on the door.
That boy special, man. He gonna get us in the end zone.
The next play's success was mostly built on Golden Tate magic, But Russell correctly diagnoses early on the fake Bears blitz despite two linebackers lined up over the center just off the ball. Charles Tillman plays off coverage, giving Tate 6 yards of space. Russell knows Tate's free release slant route will take him into the linebackers faking a blitz and then dropping into coverage. But, being a good film watcher, Wilson also probably knew the Bears linebackers at the time had a tendency to turn their back when they did this to get into their zones faster. Russell hit Tate on time, and Tate did the rest, capping the epic 97-yard drive. This game should have been over. There was no way Jay Cutler, from his own 14-yard line, with 20 seconds left, was going to get through the Legion of Boom for a field goal. And then he did it in one play, on a prayer, to the one guy you would think the Seahawks would have covered, Brandon fucking Marshall. A rookie quarterback bringing his team from behind at the end of the fourth quarter, on the road, seemed like a tall and enough task in itself. Asking Russell to do it again in overtime was improbable, nay, nearly impossible. Thankfully, the Seahawks won the toss, so Brandon Marshall could put down the knife he was using to slice and dice the Seahawks secondary. The Hawks went right back to the read option. After a long day of chasing Russell, the Bears' defense looked completely gassed. They got so desperate by the end that they were assigning 2 spies to Russell, which only served to open up the passing game. Seattle got up the field in no time flat. The final play of the game was a play-action pass out of the read option look. The misdirection tranquilized the Bears for a final time. All 7 defenders in the box bid on Russell's fake to Marshawn. Wilson was able to take his time rolling to his left, letting the play develop as Sidney Rice was crossing the field to enter the space opened up by the play action. Most right-handed quarterbacks struggle to throw as they're rolling to their left. It's an awkward arm angle, a challenge to get any velocity on the ball, and it tends to lead to inaccurate throws. Russell made it look easy, hitting Sidney so precisely he barely had to tuck the ball as he stormed towards the end zone. Unfortunately, 3 steps later, Rice was then nearly murdered on the football field. Somehow it was determined this was not a concussion, but it was a touchdown. Game over, Seahawks win. Fourth quarter comebacks have become the norm for Russell Wilson. He's on pace to be one of the NFL's all-time leaders when he retires. With so many great parts to his game, it sometimes becomes forgotten. And while he was great at the end of this game, he was also great throughout. He was efficient in the passing game, hitting big plays in the few times the Bears' cover 2 scheme allowed it. He covered up for poor pass protection with his scrambling and didn't turn the ball over once, despite being under duress all day. A bad fumble ruling that stopped a good opening drive and a sensational, wrongly overturned touchdown didn't even cause Wilson to bat an eye. When nothing else was working, he found a way. Just another underrated trait of this franchise quarterback. Wilson went on this season to beating wonder kid Robert Griffin on the road in the playoffs and nearly got the best of the favorite Atlanta Falcons a week after that. It was only a year later that Seattle went on to win their first Super Bowl with Russell at the helm. He heads now into his prime, in the middle of a Hall of Fame career. The Legion of Boom is retired or moved on. Beast Mode's cleats sometimes still hang from the wire. Doug Baldwin's watch has ended. Now this is truly his team. Long live the King.